of Clean TeQ Water.
Thank you, Chrissy. Clean TeQ Water. Harder? Clean TeQ Water, the name tells it, we are a technology company focused on water recovery and also metal recovery. Quick summary on our status. We demerged from Sunrise Energy Metals, that some of you might know. 8 million in cash as of the last quarter. Some of the top shareholders, again, given how much focus there has been on mining, Robert Friedland might be familiar to many of you. He's our biggest shareholder, huge supporter of water. Another big one in there is Fidelity, who after the merger was able to move the portfolio holdings from the person responsible for mining to a person responsible for sustainable investment. As a company, we're very much a company built on technology. We have three businesses. The left, our water technology solutions, is the mature area. Most of the people and most of our news flow is coming from that. In there we have a number of very unique technologies that's tackling some of the major problems in the global water sector at the moment. That same technology platform is also, can also be applied for metal recovery, and especially for metal recovery from tailings or from secondary resources, turning something that is now often a huge headache or a liability for mines into a potentially very valuable asset. That's an area we have quite a lot of focus on, but it's a bit under the surface at the moment. We're having a number of discussions with potential assets where we can apply our technology. In a way, Sunrise Energy Metals was an example of that. In the flow sheet of Sunrise is at its core in the processing refinery our resin exchange technology. And then thirdly, a new developed membrane that we've been developing for the last 8 years that's now almost ready for its commercial launch. It is of course linked to water technology in a very strong way. The difference is membranes, and for those of you who know water technology, membranes, it's a very large and probably the largest individual component you see across the world in water treatment. And graphene is a new material, a new platform to make membranes on. So we're very proud of that development and hope in the next year to start our field pilots across the world. So Clean TeQ Water emerging leader in water technology. As I mentioned, an unrivaled technology portfolio. I will give you a few details in the next slide. Very strong momentum. So we demerged from Sunrise Energy Metals 11 months ago, and it was on the back of that first momentum, and we've only seen it increasing. We are very optimistic about the future, very, very strong pipeline on the back of our first plants that went live, that are operating right now. And then this upside, so given this is an investor conference, I frame this as an upside. It's a very important part of our business also, and the metal recovery and our graphene membranes. A little bit on technology. I'm obviously available later to talk in much more details. For those of you who know the water sector a little bit, you probably realize it's a very, very diversified sector. And in that sector, you have both relatively commoditized technologies, relatively commoditized plants. You could say that's the sort of the old-fashioned area of water treatment. But you also have much more advanced areas that are growing very, very quickly. And that's on the back of increasing concerns about water availability and increasing concerns about micropollutants. And for a proper treatment of those pollutants, you really need more advanced technologies, and we have developed those technologies over the last years. And that's really, one is ion exchange. The way we use it is actually very, very special. And the other one is encapsulated bacteria. That's another way of using bacteria to make them more effective. So strong momentum. We've been operating within Sunrise Energy Metals for quite a while, but really in 2017 we launched our portfolio of solutions aimed at some of those very persistent problems in the water sector. And on the back of that we did our first project, very focused on mining. That's, I guess, logical both from our background, from also our shareholders, but also because if there's one area where you see some of those very persistent and difficult to solve problems in water, it is the mining sector. So it fits very well with our technology. Our benefits become very apparent within that mining sector, also because we can do metal recovery. And then after we delivered those first operating plants, we built a commercial team, and we see the growth from that right now. On the right side, you see revenues, obviously starting from a small base, but growing very quickly, and us being very optimistic about being able to continue very high growth. So just to give a bit more flavor on what we're doing, 3 example projects of the last year. One is nutrient pollution. Nutrient pollution is a major problem, especially at lower and lower levels. High levels of nutrients you can address with traditional technologies, but when you want to go to really low levels, it's much harder. So you see that guy in China swimming in an area which is clearly polluted, meaning you get algae blooms. That's a problem not only in China, it's also, for example, a concern in Australia and many coastal areas where nutrient pollution is creating a lot of problems. We have a solution that is very suitable for that, to do that at low cost without secondary waste. Another example we're very proud of in the Northern Territories, in May we signed a contract with PwC to provide better drinking water quality to local Aboriginal communities. A first project of a larger program, where our technology, again, is a very suitable solution for relatively challenging circumstances. In this case, it's uranium that's naturally occurring in the groundwater that is a hazard. And then third example, which I think is also a good example of the type of customers we attract. In this case, it's BP that also wants to create a much more sustainable oil operations. As many of you know, water is used in enhanced oil recovery, and our solution provides much more efficient use of the resources used here. So this then links to larger markets. So there's very, very large markets we focused on. It's not 100% we cover with our solutions, but it's a very substantial share of those markets. And these markets are typically looking at more advanced solutions to do a better job compared to what we've been doing, and also address recent health concerns, even with very low levels of pollutants in the water. Very strong outlook. The pipeline is always a bit hard to talk about because you can include a lot in it and you can include less in it. It is very, very healthy. It's also very healthy spread around our technologies. So although we have a technology platform that's built around resin exchange, on top of that platform we've built solutions geared at specific problems, like the one I showed 2 slides back. All of these projects in our pipeline are all based on having had a discussion with the customer, having received their water quality, and having established a clear benefit from using our technology. That's no prediction of when this project will be converted into actual sales or the chance of success, but it is giving us a lot of confidence about our continued growth. Value upside, so I mentioned that before, we have the metal recovery. We are in initial discussions with a number of potential asset holders to indeed, as I mentioned at the start, turn a liability or an asset that's not being used for recovery into something that can be used for recovery. Our resin technology is very suitable for pulling out energy metals, so battery metals. On the right is just the ones that I can talk about because it's been officially announced as well. We're working with Sunrise, the company we demerged from. We've worked with EnviroCopper with their in situ leach recovery for copper, where our technology would be a very good match, where we did initial testing. Ivanhoe Mines, we're obviously talking to them because our biggest shareholder is Robert Friedland, who's the owner of that. And then the second substantial upside I mentioned at the start are graphene membranes, a new membrane platform. And I think if you start looking into the water sector, perhaps you will see a lot of membrane companies, but you will notice there are only a very few that provide the original membranes themselves. So that's companies like DuPont or Koch Membranes. There's really a handful of companies that do that at scale, and that's the market we're targeting. So we're looking to have a new generation of membranes based on graphene. And after 8 years of development, we now, in the last year, have produced at commercial scale 1,000 meters of these membranes. And for the next year, we're looking at putting in pilots around the world, including Australia, where we can demonstrate the long-term performance of these membranes. And that's then the final step towards commercial sales. And this is a consumable from the start, means that the acceleration could be much quicker once you've been proven to be mature, because we would then become a supplier to other water companies or other trading companies, or indeed to a company like DuPont that has its own membrane portfolio. In summary then, so our company has grown very, very fast. We see a number of very strong trends that are supporting the ongoing growth. Trends many of you are familiar with, such as water availability, persistent micropollutants, and also the elimination of secondary waste. That's perhaps a little bit more hidden to the general public, but I would argue that's the single biggest problem in water treatment. The fact that almost every treatment technology creates very substantial amounts of secondary waste, which then creates secondary pollution and a lot of headaches. I think for mines, that's pretty well known, right? The tailings and the evaporation ponds that are less and less possible to be used, and therefore need solutions to eliminate them. Growth I mentioned, so we've seen very high growth, and we are targeting to continue that, and are confident we will be able to do it. Further acceleration is facilitated by the fact that we now have our first plans. The first projects are always the hardest, but we do see a lot of inbound demand from big companies saying that they need similar solutions to their problems. With more projects, we obviously get benefits of scale. We standardize our projects, we get consumables, so the resins are a consumable. The BioCleanse I mentioned at the start are the consumables, and our graphene membranes are from the start a consumable. And then finally, as a value upside, we are working hard to make our metal recovery business into a number of projects, and to make sure that our graphene membranes will be launched successfully and will then continue to grow.
Thank you very much, Willem. Very